In very foolhardy fashion, I called today's sermon Fearless Prognostications for a New Year. And yet here at the dawn of 2022, I feel like the elves with the Unitarian magic 8-ball. Everything feels like one big question mark. And one of the things I've learned, if you want to talk about reflecting on the past year and learning from it, this is the time when we do that. Well, one of the things that I've learned is I'm very bad at making predictions, at least when it comes to this pandemic. In January of last year, the vaccine was still the light at the end of the tunnel. I certainly thought it was the light at the end of the tunnel, and I was wrong. We didn't know then that for all that this vaccine was and is a miracle that has saved many, many lives, it would not, in fact, prove to be the light at the end of the tunnel as far as ending this pandemic. When you all voted to ordain me at the congregational meeting this last year, way back at the end of May 2021, if you can remember that, we were still closed for in-person services. At that point, we'd been closed for almost a year and a half. So I set the date of my actual ordination service, for October 17th, 2021, because if I was sure of absolutely one thing, it was that we would be open for in-person services by October. And I was wrong. We reopened in July of 2021, a date which would have seemed inconceivable when we first closed the campus. By July, the COVID numbers were so low, I was telling the board and our reopening team that we might just be ditching the masks entirely and declaring victory by the end of summer, like sipping our coffee during coffee hour and openly breathing in one another's faces like the whole thing was just over. And I was totally wrong. Instead, we closed again in August, just 1 month after opening. This was Delta. We reopened again in November, committed to doing everything we could possibly do to stay open this time, unless something really significant changed. And here we are, closed again 2 months later. That significant thing turned out to be the hyper-infectious Omicron variant pouring on Indiana at a time when the hospitals are all critically stressed, still dealing with Delta. It is hard to be in this place again. Maybe you're feeling that. I know I'm feeling that. My hope is that Omicron will burn out by the end of January, but I have been consistently wrong throughout this pandemic, so I would not put too much stock in my hopes. What I did get right at the beginning of last year, at the beginning of 2021, when I was making my fearless prognostications for the coming year, what I did get right was that I said we would need to be flexible and adaptive in 2021, and we have been that. I said reopening would probably be a bit of a roller coaster ride, and we'd have to figure it out as we went along. Try new things, learn from them, adjust, try again, learn, adjust. We've done that. And I predicted that you all, this congregation, UUI, that you were up to the challenge. I said you were resilient and creative, that you were committed to the future of this congregation and to Unitarian Universalism and to one another, and that you were caring and connected enough to see this through. And I was right about that. This congregation should be very proud of the way it has navigated a challenging year. In the midst of that tough year, you have done some big things. To begin with, you reinvented the worship space and the worship service as a multi-platform service that is in person and on Zoom, and that has expanded the reach of our Sunday mornings. That's huge. This congregation took like a 5-year step forward in terms of its technology and its worship culture in less than a year. And as a result, UUI is reaching more people. Between in-person and Zoom attendances at our services is significantly up from the year before. New people are finding UUI, new people are getting excited about UUI, they're stepping into positions of leadership, they're volunteering to make things happen. This is a growing congregation. In the midst of a tough year, when it would have been very natural to sort of circle the wagons and look inward, you moved instead into a deeper commitment to live out our UU values in the wider world. You passed an eighth principle as a broad commitment to doing anti-racism work and justice work. You made significant new commitments to our environmental work and deepened our relationship with Hoosier Interfaith Power and Light and showed up at public rallies. You formed a new team to work more closely with Faith in Indiana in our justice work here in the community. You formed a team that is working right now with Exodus refugees on sponsoring a refugee family. And you continue to share half the plate every Sunday, to collect generously for the Boulevard Place Food Pantry, to provide meals for the Indiana Youth Group, and to support the Holiday Giving Tree, which supported 10 families in our area. In the midst of a tough year when it would have been natural to turn inward, this congregation has engaged with the wider world of Unitarian Universalism. UUI delegates attended our annual General Assembly with enthusiasm and brought back all kinds of ideas. Our delegates brought back ideas for improving how we as a church can be delegates, can engage with General Assembly in the future and do it much, much better. I'm excited about that. They brought back learnings about how to do multi-platform church that are going to keep us on track to reinvent how we do church so it is truly accessible. They brought back a deeper understanding of our association-wide commitment to liberation work and to undoing white supremacy culture. And they engaged UUI with this association-wide conversation we're having on reimagining the 7 principles. That's going to be a big national UU conversation that we're going to have over several years. Well, during virtual coffee hour, you all participated in an 8-part series of conversations on reimagining our 7 principles. And the thoughts that you provided there are going to go back to the UUA, and they're going to shape the national conversation. And speaking denominationally, in 2021, you all ordained a new minister, which is not a small task and is a great service to our shared faith. And I know I certainly appreciated it. In the midst of a tough year when it would have been easy to hunker down and just focus on getting by and meeting immediate needs, UUI's leadership has instead been planning and preparing for a brilliant future. The facilities team has undertaken significant repairs and upgrades to the campus at the same time as the board and its task forces has begun strategic planning to refresh our mission and vision and chart a new course to carry us into the future. It's a really exciting conversation, and you are all going to be a part of it. The board will be inviting you, the congregation, into that mission and vision work beginning at the end of this month, January 29th and 30th. So look for more information on that soon. But let's talk about January. Let's talk about just this month that we're 2 days into. Never mind fearless prognostications for 2022. Let's talk about fearless prognostications for January. I don't have any idea what this coming year holds. I have given up trying to second guess the course of this pandemic. But I think we all sense, and the experts are certainly telling us, that January is going to be a really tough month. January is going to be tough. We can expect a lot of people to get sick. We have some reason to hope with Omicron that most of those people will not end up in the hospital. That Omicron is milder, especially if you are vaccinated and boosted. The science is still out on that, but it is looking positive. But the sheer scale of the infections is going to be something we just haven't seen. It's been my job as part of the reopening task team to track the numbers every day. I mean, everyone on the team is looking at the numbers, but it's my job to put them in the spreadsheet, which is a great joy for me because I love spreadsheets. But I can tell you this past week, the numbers blew up like we have not seen in literally 2 years of this pandemic. And more concerning, available hospital space is critically low in a way we haven't seen since the beginning of this pandemic here in Indy. And so that's why we're temporarily Zoom only. With that many people sick, we should expect a lot of disruptions in normal life, right? Travel is going to be difficult to impossible, certainly precarious. Schools may close again, not because they want to, but because the teachers and the support staff are sick. Businesses may close. Store shelves may empty again. Supply lines will be disrupted. Church might get disrupted even more as well. Staff could get sick. Key leaders and volunteers could get sick. I could get sick. And these disruptions could stretch on into February and on into March because it takes time to recover from disruption of this scale. Of course, I hope I'm wrong, and the good news is I'm wrong literally all the time. And the other good news is that we're not where we were back at 2020 at the start of this thing. This isn't just a replay of earlier stages of the pandemic. We're better at treating this virus, and there are some promising new treatments that are on the way, that are approved and ready to go. The nation is 62% vaccinated, not where we wanted to be, but that's something. We understand about masking and distancing, even if everyone doesn't do it perfectly all the time. Personally, for a variety of reasons, I'm optimistic about the spring. I think if we get through this winter, the spring could look very different. But getting through the winter is going to be no small thing. Fortunately, at this point, we're pretty good at getting through things. If there's a lesson we learned from 2021, it's that we're pretty good at getting through things. You're pretty good at getting through things. This past year has been a wild ride, right? I mean, we started the year with the Capitol insurrection, with an armed mob in the Senate floor, and somehow things got more stressful after that. 2021 was a bear. If all you did was make it through, that's enough. Give yourself so much appreciation just for that. Anything else you feel like you accomplished this past year is just gravy. If all you did was get through, that was enough. And think about how strong we had to be to get through 2021. We're strong enough for 2022, whatever it may bring. Now, in the face of as much uncertainty as we are facing, it is difficult to plan for the immediate future. You do your best to imagine and account for different scenarios, but sometimes the possibility of planning just goes right out the window. What we can do is do our best to be ready. We can build up our state of general readiness so when the moment arrives, whatever moment that is, we can respond to it in the most helpful, creative, and life-giving way to whatever has presented itself. And we already know 2022 is going to be a year of big national conversations. Think of all the things that are in play this year, right? Abortion rights, voting rights, LGBTQ rights. Meanwhile, we're seriously having a national argument over whether we can and should teach the history of racism in our schools. Not about how we're going to teach it, but about whether we can teach it. So we want to be ready to be sure that our voice, informed by our Unitarian Universalist values, is a part of these critical conversations that we're going to be having in 2022. And we already know 2022 is going to be a year where we continue to face these big collective challenges, even setting aside the challenge of the pandemic. There's climate change, there's gun violence, there's economic inequality, infrastructure challenges, Facebook being Facebook. We want our UU values to help shape the response to these challenges. We want to be ready. But I'm not just talking about being ready for problems. I'm sure 2022 will have problems, but it will also have opportunities and possibilities and beautiful moments and hilarious moments. And we will learn so many interesting and wondrous things in 2022. At the very end of 2021, at the very end of this so difficult and maddening year, I learned about something called the hagfish. I'm going to let you look it up. But suffice to say, I am so happy now to have the hagfish in my life, this little critter I didn't know about. And who knows what wonders 2022 will bring, just waiting to be embraced. We want to be ready for that. And being ready in part means being physically ready, right? We can prepare our bodies for the year ahead by caring for them as best we can, getting exercise, getting rest, being healthy in our habits, doing the things that make us physically strong and as agile as we're able. We can also ready ourselves, whatever may come, by attending to our spiritual care and our spiritual grounding. Make time for those practices that call you back to gratitude, that bolster your inner peace, that promote balance and equanimity. Gratitude is such a core, key practice for resilience. Make time for gratitude. Practice humility. Anticipate that you are going to be wrong about something, and then what happens next? Maybe rehearse in your head a couple of times saying, I was wrong, or I'm sorry. Practice charity of spirit. Tell yourself that everyone around you is doing their best, including you. Practice compassion. Remind yourself that everyone around you is going through a thing, because everyone is. Everyone is. And probably if you only knew about the thing that that person is going through, you would want to give them a hug or buy them a cup of coffee. Cultivate joy and small delights. Joy and delight are powerful sources of resilience, so do the things that are sources of life-giving delight to you, whether it's being outdoors, snuggling with your children and your animal friends, making and enjoying art, making music, singing, dancing, journaling, meditating, whatever those things are. Cultivate the things that give you delight and joy, and then cultivate community. Community is how we got through this and how we're going to get through this. Expand community. Invite a friend to a thing. Invite a friend to UUI. Cultivate connections. We need each other to survive. The future is always uncertain, and this year, maybe more than most. This is what I am certain of. I trust us. I trust this congregation. You are good at caring for each other and at caring for the community. You can be a source of strength and resilience and grace for one another, and I have no doubt that you will be in 2022. And I trust this faith. I trust in the values and the vision of Unitarian Universalism. We have something to give to the world, something that is needed, something that is special. We're not unique in bringing gifts, of course, but we are unique in the gifts that we bring. We can be a blessing to the world, and I have no doubt that we will be in 2022. At the dawn of this new year, with all of these open questions and open possibilities, let us trust in all that we have been and all that we are and all that we can be. Let us ready ourselves as best we can, come what may. And then let's rise up to meet all the challenges and all of the promises of this year. Together, we can do hard things, and we can do beautiful things, and we surely will. Blessed be, and amen.